Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern to discuss whether there are other ways to talk to a climate change denier other than to say climate change is a real thing, because apparently they're not into believing that. You reckon there's some possibilities there, Steve?
Look, there's not much. There is actually a way to deal with them, but it's not trying to convince them otherwise. I think denial, whether it's climate change or weight gain, that doesn't make any difference. People, refuse to believe.
Well, what about this idea that, it's about using the economic argument, because typically the side that has the climate change deniers are probably more going to start invoking arguments around economics, that it's going to cost too much, etc., etc., etc. And that maybe one way to get at them is not to beat them over the head with, the moral argument. It's to actually get to them by saying, it's not in our economic interests to have basically dirty industries. It's actually in our economic interest to have them clean, and in the process, there are actually a lot of benefits to it, because it leads to economic growth in greener industries and also job growth in those industries as they sort of diverge, expand, become bigger, and etc. So I'm not sure if you saw, I've been seeing some ads on TV by AGL where they're promoting that they're going to start transitioning their electricity network over to more green alternatives, and they're making the case, it's not going to happen overnight, but they're going to take time to sort of knock these things over, and at some point in the future they'll be in a better position to be able to deal with this sort of thing. It would seem to me that might be a way to bridge that gap. This is in any sort of partisan argument. It's not a partisan argument because of the science behind it, but in terms of the pure political nature of it, it is a partisan argument in the way they argue with each other, the two sides. That in like any type of partisan argument, you've got to find somewhere where both can argue on a piece of common ground. Could the economics of climate change be that place where it could then bring everyone together on it?
No. For some, yes. For some, yes. But I think for the majority, no. I think, the majority just have a particular polemic about it, and just like, being agitated, being afraid, and being angry. And they do that very well. They use outdated arguments, and I don't think the economic one will swing them very quickly. It'll have to eventually. A great example, as you say, is you've got an energy company, saying we're going renewable. And that's because the writing's on the wall for the energy companies. And these aren't silly companies. They know what they'll have to do to be successful, to make money in the future. And they know if they don't, disruption, the same disruption that's ruining taxi services, ruining hotel chains, will ruin the power industry, because people can generate their own power. There's not 100% foolproof or whatever, which is what your climate deniers will say. We need to dig more coal and burn more and to supply the electricity. But if you don't deal with it, there's going to be all sorts of trouble. And coal's outdated.
Well, what about so you think it's there's no possibility of a denier getting on board if you present them the idea that we're going to institute this, say this electricity company introduces this program to do solar panels in the desert, which will generate 10,000 jobs and give a whole slew of people, really, really well-paid jobs in this industry that's going to generate money. And you don't mention at all anything about what climate change is, or or any of the moral arguments that they've gotten sick of listening to. Do you think that there is no way that they would listen to that?
Look, I think, and this is only a personal observation, but I think those that will be swayed by that sort of argument have already come across in the last 3 to 5 years. And I think that they're probably the boards of electricity companies that are coming out and saying that renewables are the future. They know, the writing's on the wall, they realise. I think when you're dealing with deniers, you're dealing with people that believe that climate change in the first place is a conspiracy. So the promise of new economic opportunity and jobs is a conspiracy as well. I mean, you might as well be trying to convince somebody that they've got an irrational fear of spiders or something like that, or heights.
So I guess there's a difference between the deniers who were more, I guess, sane in the sense that that's what they thought, and then they came around maybe on the economics of it. But then there's a more fringe element that just doesn't matter what you say. They're just not going to accept it. That would be par for the course, though, with most things. I would guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because for whatever wacky ideas people, any fringe people might have with this sort of thing, it's about capturing that middle ground that would then eventually make something happen, which is really where the important part of it is. You mentioned about these companies being smart about seeing how things are going, and it's interesting that at a government level there's just been such a lack of political will to make a lot of these things happen, yet there's a lot of these corporations that are basically quietly in the background going ahead and doing it anyway. So whereas a government might, instead of waiting for a government to legislate something to provide that, I don't know, business certainty that they can work with, they're just going ahead and doing it anyway.
Well, that's disruption. That's, I think one thing that is interesting in terms of this discussion is looking at Airbnb. And once again, it's not really a direct comparison, but, there's a whole fear campaign run about Airbnb, preventing people from having low-cost rent, rental accommodation and stuff like that. It's complete rot. It's just a myth that's being peddled by people who are competing against Airbnb's disruption. So, these sorts of stories and always are founded on fear. So climate deniers typically are afraid of something. And very often they don't have the knowledge or capacity to influence what they're afraid of. And that's where the denial comes. It's, disruption is coming, and it's not a question of a conspiracy in power or renewables. It's the fact that we've crossed a river somewhere along the way with technology, and we've built a bridge, and we're not going backwards. It's a brave new world again.
Yeah, exactly. And it just highlights the fact that change is inevitable in this world, and it highlights a direction, I think, that this century, where the disruption in this century is going towards, the technological disruption. I guess 20th century had a lot of disruptive elements to it, and you think about how many times, well, it should be said, how many times the world changed after several big events, particularly in the first half of the 20th century. And now but this is like of a different type. It's getting pushed through because the way, and this is, I guess, a broader question than just climate change, it's about how we all live is going to change. The manner, the underpinnings of how our Western lifestyles have been created in the past, the structure of all that is changing. And that, I can imagine that for people who are in the denial camp can be quite a frightening prospect.
Well, that's right. And, you just have to be understanding of that. I don't know what to say. I mean,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and there are a lot of things that are still going to happen beyond the energy sort of changes that we're witnessing now. There'll be more and more disruption. And we know that we're in for a very tough time as a society. It will probably take us 20 years to start to adapt to the new and emerging economy, which is going to replace the one that we enjoy today. We can only hope that, it leads to some sort of utopian future where we all don't have to work and everything's easy and there's more than enough power for everyone and it's cheap. But it might not.
Well, on that point, Steve, we can wrap it up and hope that we get the Star Trek future as Gene Roddenberry promised.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there, and you can subscribe to all our channels. We'd greatly appreciate that. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.